Hi, and welcome to this live reading from A Stranger in Disguise by P.J. Mann. And this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Tuesday, February 3rd. It was 3:30 in the afternoon when an old bus bearing the name of a foreign acting group stopped in front of the old Teatro Carminio, followed by a long truck. A middle-aged man with too little hair left on his head and a few extra kilos accumulated on his waist waited at the door of the theater. He waved at the driver with an amiable smile to brighten his expression. Dalen was the first member of the theater company to get off the bus and reach him. "Good afternoon. You must be Mr. Donati. Nice to meet you in person. I'm Dalen Jordanescu, the director of the company." Mr. Donati shook his hand. "Yes, I'm Adriano Donati, the director and owner of the Teatro Carminio. It's an honor to have your company performing in my theater. As we agreed during our online meetings, I'm at your full availability for any needs you might have. Have you already checked in at your hotel? I believe you were probably dead tired after the journey." "Not yet. We thought we would reach our accommodations once we had everything settled here. I wouldn't be able to rest knowing I have left the preliminary details, like having all the costumes and props in place before we can start the rehearsals." Slowly, the other crew members also got off the bus, gazing around at the new environment. Dalen took that opportunity to introduce them to Mr. Donati, starting with the girls, then the men, and ending with a teenage boy who came down last, stretching his back. "I'm honored to meet you all, but I'm still wondering why you didn't travel by plane. It would have been more comfortable." Adriano acknowledged the weary expressions on the actors' faces. A couple of women reached the group. "I'll tell you why," one of them replied, as if on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "Because this moron, Uncle Scrooge, thought it would be cheaper to drive here from Bucharest. Well, maybe it was, but it's going to take a week for me to call him any name other than moron. Of course, I couldn't forget to introduce our charming team of backstage artists, Milena, the costume designer, and Linda, the makeup artist. The scenographer, Nikolaj, and his team are now busy unloading the truck." Milena pushed Dalen to the side with a graceless gesture, then she flashed her best smile and introduced herself to Adriano. "Please forgive my rude behavior. I can assure you it's only because of the terrible journey. 21 hours on the road with only a few interruptions would dishearten anyone in this world." She threaded one hand through her hair to comb it back and shook Adriano's hand with the other. "I understand," Mr. Donati offered an amused smirk. "Please follow me. I can show you around so you can reach the hotel as soon as possible." "Thank you," Dalen replied, and together with the rest of the crew, he followed Adriano inside the theater. Elvira silently followed all the others, still keeping a distance from them. She looked around, deeply inhaling the familiar scents of wood, moquette, and upholstery common to every theater anywhere in the world. She had become addicted to those smells from the first time she'd ever entered a theater. It was when her father had brought her to attend a play. She didn't even remember the title of the play they saw, but from that day on, she could no longer dispense with those scents. The soft touch of a hand on her shoulder forced her to turn her head. The smiling face of Emilian reached her heart, and the frown on her forehead relaxed. "Nobody should know about us." She came closer to his ear as Adriano talked and showed them around from backstage to the dressing rooms, the storage area, and the stage. I know, but I don't much care now. I missed you during this exhausting journey," Emilian whispered, crossing his arm around her waist. "I promise you, one day we will leave this company of losers and have the life we both deserve." Elvira tried to muffle a giggle. "How are you planning to do so? Are you going to rob a bank here in Italy?" "No, but I still have plans. You will see." Emilian increased the pace of his steps before someone could notice them holding each other. Shaking her head, Elvira watched him walking forward. "Since we started dating 3 years ago, he keeps promising me God only knows what. I wonder what he has in mind," she thought. As they all gathered on the stage, Adriano turned his glance to look at them all. "We scheduled the show for April 3rd. Therefore, you have 2 months to prepare the scenography and costumes, rehearse the parts, and ensure everything runs smoothly. Although Macbeth has a reputation for being a cursed play, I hope you're rational enough to consider this rumor for what it is, a stupid superstition. This is your occasion to shine and show everybody that there's no curse. As you know, actors, singers, and people working in the creative world are perhaps the most superstitious people." Nicoletta walked further from her position. However, we don't fall into that category, at least not as far as I'm concerned. She turned her gaze to look at the rest of the crew, and a murmuring chorus agreed with her. So we can keep unloading our material. Then we will go to our hotel where we can take it easy for a couple of days before starting our work. Dalen rubbed his hands together. Can we choose our dressing rooms? Elvira asked. It often happened that the theater didn't have enough rooms to allow each crew member to have their privacy and quiet to change clothes and get ready for the premiere. Sure, Adriano nodded. There are enough rooms to accommodate you. Although this is a small venue, it was created to give more space to the artists. Hopefully for our accommodations, this moron didn't think about saving his money and booking a dorm in a hostel. Elena crossed her arms over her chest, glaring at Dalen. Grimacing at her comment, the man walked toward her. For your information, I have rented 5 apartments with cleaning service for these 2 months. Concerning the meals, since we're mostly staying here at the theater, we will eat at a restaurant. The area is well served in that regard, and I believe the bonus included in your compensation also covers your personal expenses. His voice echoed in the hall, sounding more threatening than he probably meant. Elena didn't seem impressed. It was common for her to argue with Dalen. She turned on her heels and returned to unloading her tools and setting up her working station. Slowly, the rest of the crew also began to get busy. Elvira was quick to go and choose the best dressing room. If I want one close to $1 million, I need to hurry up. I knew it, Nicoletta chanted. Elvira turned her head abruptly in the direction of the voice like a thief caught breaking a safe. You almost gave me a heart attack, she said, continuing to place the name tag on the door. Why don't you help me instead of nagging? Nicoletta grabbed the other tags with a naughty expression and placed them on the other doors. Have you checked them all? What do you mean? Elvira wondered. I mean to ask whether you have chosen the more spacious one, or did you blindly place the name tags to ensure your room will be close enough to $1 million? You don't have to hide your affection toward him, and I won't tell anyone if that is your fear. Elvira hesitated, biting her lower lip, and opened the door of the room she'd chosen. When she switched on the light, a surprised yelp escaped her mouth. Oh my God, this is even better than I expected. Despite what they say, so far Macbeth has brought me luck. She clapped her hands. You lucky bitch. Nicoletta peeked from the doorway and admired the room. Let's see if I can find something similar. If the one you have is the largest, I hope to get the second best among those left, she added before hurrying to examine the other dressing rooms. When shortly after she appeared in Elvira's room, a broad smile lit up her face. We all won the lottery today. Even the others are quite spacious. Elvira trotted outside the theater. With a bright smile plastered on her face, she headed to the truck and helped the rest of the crew to unload it. When she returned from the third trip, the voice of Milena yelling at someone caught her attention. A giggle escaped her. Is it possible that Dalen and Milena must always yell at each other? If I weren't sure it wasn't true, I would consider them a married couple. Trying to ignore Milena's voice, Elvira walked away to reach her room. I'd like to know whether this is what is waiting for $1 million in me if we get married one day, she whispered, talking to herself. She stopped for a moment, thinking about her words. She had never considered marrying him, and they'd never even discussed it. Yet, recalling the promise he'd made minutes before, everything seemed to indicate he had the intention to propose to her. She grabbed a chair and sat, holding the costume and caressing the soft fabric. I'm wondering what could bring our relationship out in the open and what will happen next. Dalen wouldn't appreciate it. I fear he is getting too jealous of me. Raising her gaze to look around, she started to reconsider her life and how she accepted the flirtatious attentions of Dalen. I shouldn't have to. I feel like I'm in a trap now, and eventually I'm afraid he will end up thinking I'm interested in him. She stood from the chair and threw the costume to the side with a graceless movement. What am I supposed to do now? How do I get out of this situation? She whispered. She turned to look in the mirror and then looked around the room. There wasn't any window, but the air conditioning worked flawlessly. Are you going to stay here all night long? Nicoletta asked, peeking from the doorway. Why? What time is it? Elvira wondered. It's already 7 p.m. They're heading for a restaurant, and then Dalen will show us where our apartments are. We'll have to figure out who we share the apartment with. Okay, I'll take my coat and I'm ready to leave, Elvira replied, determined not to think about her personal issues any longer, at least for that evening. I should talk about it with Amelia. Together, we will find a solution to that problem, too.